guys, and welcome back to Dylan's Little Hobbies. And in today's video, I am going to be building a mini algae scrubber for my aquarium. And you know what? It's only going to cost me 13 bucks. Let's get started. Okay, before we get into the building of this thing, what the heck am I talking about? Algae scrubber. Well, you guys are probably just think I'm just gonna attach a brush to a stick. I'm not talking about that type of algae scrubber. I'm talking about the algae scrubber where you don't get rid of algae, but yeah, grow algae. Why would you want to do that? Because by growing algae, you basically fight algae. And I know what that sounds like. You're fighting fire with fire. That only causes more fire. It sounds like it's only gonna cause more algae. Why on earth would you want to do this? Why on earth would you want to create more algae? Yeah, we're going to be talking about that in today's video. So without further ado, let's begin. So, an algae scrubber, what it basically is, the purpose of this thing basically is to grow algae to fight algae. And the way you do that is pretty much simple. And the reason why you probably have an algae issue is due to, yes, algae is pretty much a plant cell, so you can throw CO2 in there. Yes, some tanks, by adding CO2 you can fight algae. Other tanks, by decreasing CO2 you can fight algae, but mostly forget CO2. It's not CO2. Lighting? Possible. Lighting is a possible solution. Maybe cutting back on your lights can fight off algae. But in a reef tank, yeah. Or in a highly planted tank where you need a lot of light, yeah. Cutting back lights will definitely cut back the algae, but it'll definitely cut back your corals or your plants too. So, not a good situation there. Definitely not the way to go. Most of the time, about, I would say 80% of the time, algae is caused by none other than a nutrition deficiency. Or really, a high level of nutrition, too much nutrition in an aquarium. That's what causes algae. Why is that? Simply put, algae is basically nature's way of fighting back the nutrition that could possibly kill your fish. So really, you should be bowing down to the gods of algae, because algae is what's saving your fish. But yeah, let's face it, algae looks absolutely god awful. Doesn't it? Oh my god. The thing about algae is we all hate it. Sometimes in a certain aquascape, in a certain way, if you use it correctly, it kinda can look kind of aged, like the aquarium is kind of aged, so a little algae isn't a huge problem. But a lot can be. You can fight algae, you can erase algae, you can clean up algae all you want. There's even chemicals out there to take out algae. I've actually used them in the past. Okay, here's the problem with this, okay? Yeah, if you use any of that, you're going to get results. You're going to end up eliminating the algae. But what you're not going to end up doing is eliminating the nutrients in the water. And the nutrients in the water is what's causing the algae. Without the algae, that's going to end up killing your fish. So a lot of the times, I have actually used chemicals in my tank to fight off algae, and guess what? My fish would die. Was it because of the chemicals? No, it was because I wasn't doing anything to fight back the nutrients in the tank that was causing the algae. And of course the nutrients comes from the fish, right? So there's really only a couple different ways you can deal with that. Either increase filtration or take out some fish. I'm pretty sure 99% of us are not going to take out the fish. And there's a good number of us that probably can't afford or have the room to put a bigger filter on an aquarium. I mean, come on. You really want to put a 20, 30, 40 gallon filter on a 10-gallon tank just because you're having a little bit of algae issues? I know I don't. I mean, trust me, I like doubling up my filtration. I really do. I always double up my filtration on every aquarium I've ever had. But there is a point where, okay, I don't need a gigantic filter on a tiny little tank, do I? But here's the thing. Can we get the benefits of algae without the drawbacks? Because the benefits of algae is that it's going to absorb all that excess nutrients and not kill your fish. But we of course don't want it in the tank. We don't want to look at it. This is where an algae scrubber comes in. An algae scrubber is basically you pick one part of your tank, a specific part of your tank. You close off that one tiny part of your tank, probably in your filter, possibly your all-in-one, or maybe your sump, and you grow algae there. That way, you get all the benefits from it, and it's easy to go find and clean that spot, and you don't have to see it all over your aquarium. The benefits are insane there. It's basically like using a refugium without having all of that space taken up in the aquarium or in the filter. It's basically a mini refugium that's just as effective as a refugium, but is even smaller. Now, usually what people do when they grow algae scrubbers is they stick it on the side of the aquarium, and they just stick a light on the outside of the aquarium, and that grows algae just fine. A lot of people will usually do that. I could technically do that with the all-in-one aquarium that I have. The problem is I have my entire back of the all-in-one completely filled up with filtration. There is absolutely no room for me to put on a algae scrubber back there. Not to mention, I added this really nice black backdrop to the entire aquarium, and I could just, put a hole in the backdrop and stick a light there, but I really rather not. I thought about this, and I can either go with one, a hang-on back algae scrubber, or two, I can plumb something up where water comes out of the aquarium down through the algae scrubber and gets pumped back up. Something similar to how this one works. This one is super expensive, super nice. I could either do something like that, or I could just do a intake algae scrubber, and that's actually what I want to do. I want to build an intake small algae scrubber, something that I can stick behind the rocks, something that I can kind of hide into the aquascape, but still get the benefits of the algae scrubber, obviously. Now, so, without further ado, let's go ahead and get into building this, shall we? Again, this thing is only going to cost me 13 bucks. And the reason why I say that is because this light right here that I am going to use literally only cost me 13 bucks. Wow, it's a lot larger than I thought it was going to be. I thought it was going to be a lot smaller. But this will still actually work. Actually, it will work a lot better because it's a bit bigger than I thought it was going to be. Yeah. Okay, so let's get started on building this thing, shall we? Next, I'm going to need just a container, and this right here is just a fish food container, literally a Tetra fish food container that I of course have cleaned out in RO water and everything and let it dry and everything. So that is all I am going to need to build this thing. A fish food container and a $13 light. That's it. Alright, now what we need to do is we need to put a bunch of holes in this. Yeah, we need to put a bunch of holes in this. That is going to take some time. If I had a drill, it probably would go a little faster. But that's what I'm gonna start getting to work on. So when I'm done with that, we'll come back and then we'll finish this up. Alright, so it took me forever to make all of the holes in this. Okay, and then another thing that took me forever is I had to make this hole here. And I did it with my knife here. Yes, I did, just with this knife. Was not easy. Be much easier if you had a drill, but I finally stuck it through here. And all I really had to do was I had to wiggle the USB here through this. Luckily, it's a USB, which means I can just plug this into a USB brick and call it a day. Be so much worse if it was an actual like plug. That's why I went with this thing, because it was a USB one. If it was an actual plug, I would never be able to do this without like punching a giant hole here or something like that. But nope, that ended up actually, I'm actually pretty impressed with how that ended up being. Now there are just a little like sharp on the edge. I can of course like sand that down or something. I probably will. But this goes into here. I put some filter floss into this, and the reason why I put the filter floss in there is not only is it a growing media for the algae, somewhere where the algae can attach to and grow on. It's easy to pull out. Easy to pull out the algae that grows on it. But it also kind of blocks this light from shining through all of these tiny little holes, because all these tiny little holes are just to get some water through this. Now, with that said, there are definitely improvements that I could make on this instantaneously. Okay, so let's go over that. So, first off, instead of all these little holes, I get like one of those little pumps and stick it through the bottom and just run water through this. If I really, really wanted this to be as super effective, I would definitely put a pump on the bottom of this, a small one, and just have water going through this, and then put another hole up here and have water just going straight through this. That way, all of the nutrition is being pumped through this instead of relying on just the circulation of the tank to do it. Though I'm just going to rely on the circulation of the tank to do it, because I don't want to have a separate pump. I don't want to have a separate outlet and everything else for it. I just want the lights. So, other than that, another improvement that I could have done, this is white. I really wish this wasn't white. I wish this was black. I guess I could get some like aquarium safe paint. There are some aquarium safe paints out there, and I could spray this black, as well as the lid, which is actually brown. I could spray paint this black. I wish it was black, but not that big of a deal. Another thing you could do with this, I just thought of this now, is you could actually put a hole through here, or probably the bottom, and stick this on the intake of a filter. Probably not an all-in-one, but maybe like a hang-on back or something like that. That's possible. You could possibly do that and grow algae and just unscrew it from here, so you can harvest the algae and get rid of it. Yeah, there are some possible improvements that you could obviously do. Another possible improvement, I just went with this light because it was cheap, it was USB, and it was, of course, waterproof. But you could do like waterproof LEDs, like LED strips, and have them go straight down the middle, maybe go around a little pipe or a straw or something, and have them go straight down the middle, have light going up and down this entire thing. that would cause a lot more algae to grow. Another thing is, if this was a bigger container, both sidewise and length, you could definitely use a lot more light, which would grow algae a lot quicker. That could definitely be a possibility. Now, with that said, I did this because I already tested it for size. I can hide it behind the rock. I probably won't notice it in the tank. That's why I went with this size. Second, I just wanted an algae scrubber. I just wanted something that grew algae and I can toss out every now and again. So that's what this is basically going to do for me. With that said, I will definitely say this. There's definitely a lot more improvements that I can already make myself. I'm just not going to. I don't want it to be too effective because I do have coral and I do have a macroalgae. So I just needed something to absorb that extra nutrients that's causing the pest algae that I don't want, and help fight back against cyanobacteria as well. So that's why I went this route. Yeah. And I think it's going to work. Now, with that said, it's not going to be a stick it in there, come back the next day, and the rest of the algae is gone. It's not going to be like that at all. This has to compete with my main light as well during the day. During the night, it's not going to have that problem, but I probably don't want to run at night because I want to keep the lights out for the fish. But maybe once or twice a week, I should probably just keep it on all day to absorb that extra nutrition, and definitely fight back the algae. But yeah, there you have it. Okay, so that's this video. And in my next video, I know it's just going to be next week, but I'm filming this in May. This video won't come out in June. I'll have another video that will, next week's video will come out in June. And we'll have an update on this to see how effective this was. I don't think this is going to be as effective as it could be. I think I might be able to fight back quite a bit of algae, but it's not going to make my tank crystal clear or anything. It could make your tank crystal clear if you, of course, made those improvements that I'm not going to do on this. But yeah, that's right there is my mini algae scrubber. Let's go put it in the tank.